Thank you all for joining us this evening as we welcome you to our annual planned giving reception, which we are hosting virtually for the first time. As many of you know, we have been fortunate to host this event for many years at Christie's auction house. While we were unable to gather in person this year, we are so grateful to our friends at Christie's for making this event possible in a virtual format for all of you to enjoy from the comfort of your home or office. I want to specifically thank Bonnie Brennan, President of Christie's Americas, for her continued support of Calvary. Bonnie is a member of both our Calvary Fund Board of Directors and our Professional Advisors Council, and has been a strong champion of Calvary's mission for many years. You'll be hearing from both Bonnie and her colleague, Tash Perrin, Deputy Chairman of Christie's Americas, on how the constraints of the pandemic led to a year of innovation by Christie's and the sale of one-of-a-kind treasures. Of course, the spread of COVID-19 has had a significant impact on Calvary. As COVID-19 has changed the way we all live our lives, Calvary has continued to provide its unique and extensive care while meeting the present healthcare challenges. To ensure the safety of our patients and families, we have had to institute many new safety protocols, but I assure you that our staff continues to provide the same compassionate care that we always have. In the over 3 decades that I have served as CEO of this hospital, I have never witnessed more dedication, integrity, and resilience from our staff than over this past year and a half. We could never continue providing our specialized CalvaryCare without the support of you, our generous donors, whose unwavering support inspires us each and every one every day. Your generosity has never been more needed or more deeply appreciated as we continue to navigate new challenges in bringing the best end-of-life care wherever needed. With inpatient care in the Bronx, Brooklyn, Manhattan, and Queens, and home hospice in those same boroughs, as well as Nassau, Rockland, and Westchester County. I now invite you to take a look at just one of the many countless stories of how our staff has continued to provide remarkable care to our patients and families during the battle against COVID-19. Thank you.
I was my mom's primary caregiver. I worked, but came and took care of my mom every day, all the time. And at this point, Mom was bedbound, and I knew that things were not good. And because of COVID, I could not get help. I called her doctor to come and see her. And she said, "I'm sorry, Angela, we cannot come because of COVID." Then I was like, well, maybe I better send it to the hospital. So I called 911, and the paramedics came to the house, and they said to me, if you send your mom to the hospital, Mom will be alone. You cannot go inside with her. My mom had very bad Lewy body dementia, and I've done everything for my mom. I've been her voice for 5 years that she's been ill, and I was not sending her there by herself. And then that's when I decided I'm not sending her to the hospital. I need Calvary.
Angela was beside herself by the time I walked in the door, crying. I just need a hug. In our normal days, that's the first thing we would do, is hug that family member. And I remember feeling awful behind the mask and the shield and thinking, thank God I'm wearing all this because she can't see my face. And I was in tears because that was the only thing I could not do.
She came in and she looked at me, and I was wiped out because 2 weeks of not having anyone to help you, to tell you what to do, I was just destroyed. And Kelly was like, okay, let's go see your mom.
We didn't have a positive COVID test. We had what we called person under suspicion. Fever for 2 weeks, congested for 2 weeks, not eating for 2 weeks. That fit the criteria for a person under suspicion of COVID. So we had to maintain a specific regimen of double masking and a face shield and a gown and gloves and social distancing and only touching patients when necessary, but trying to give the proper education that the family needed to provide the right care.
At that point, Kelly said that Mom was not ready to pass. She was on her way to pass, but she was not ready. She told me, I'll hold your hand the whole way, even if we have to do it virtually. And we did. I would take my camera and we would go on FaceTime and,
we would look at her mom's feet. She'd put the phone near her mom so I could hear her breathing, explain to her how to put the oxygen on, explain to her how to change the medication dosages. Anything that she needed, we were able to manage like I was in person until I could get there.
And because of Calvary and because of Kelly, I was able to keep my mom home. To die in her own home with me, instead of being in the hospital all by herself.
There was never a question about whether we were going to care for a patient. We did it well. We did it really on the backs of our nurses, though, who were in the community. And at this point, we probably have taken care of close to 500 COVID patients.
It was exhausting emotionally, physically, but somehow, you reach one patient and realize that you made a difference, and they give you enough energy to pay it forward to the next patient, the next visit, the next day, the next hour, next week.
And despite the frequency with which people were dealing with death and working with family members, our staff were resilient, and they were able to re-energize and go on to the next patient and go on to the next family members. And they give a wonderful gift to patients to help make it happen that people are allowed to die at home.
The dedication of the people who work for Calvary, it's not just a job, it's a passion. My mom would have been very, very, very happy with Kelly and with the decision that was made for the last 8 days of her life. And I will never forget what they did for me. I'll never forget what Kelly did for me, and I'll never forget what Calvary as a whole has done for me.
What an inspiring story. I want to thank Angela for sharing her experience with us. I have had the privilege of being involved with Calvary since 2003, and this is just one of the countless stories I have heard recounting the significant and meaningful impact Calvary has on patients and their families. On behalf of both the Calvary Professional Advisors Council and the Calvary Fund Board, I also want to thank you all for joining us this evening. As many of you may know, Calvary was founded in 1899 by a prominent New Yorker, Annie Blount Storrs. Since Calvary's founding, many donors have helped the hospital grow and expand its services through generous planned gifts. We established the Society of 1899 to honor those individuals who have included Calvary in a will or trust, established a gift annuity, or used a beneficiary designation naming Calvary to receive retirement assets or life insurance. Many of you watching tonight are already members, and we sincerely thank each and every one of you for this generous and important commitment. I wish that we were able to thank you in person this evening, but I'm confident that we will be able to do so in the immediate future. Currently, we are fortunate to have 185 members of the Society of 1899. For those of you who are not yet members and would like more information, please contact Elizabeth Eds Kugasian. Her contact information is provided in the gift boxes that were sent to your home or office to enjoy. Also included in your gift boxes, besides of course some tasty treats, is other pertinent information about the many services Calvary provides and the various opportunities for your support. We hope that you will take time to review these materials. Calvary is currently in the midst of a crucial capital campaign known as the CalvaryCare initiative. This campaign will support, extend, enhance, and sustain the unique services we provide. Both major gifts and legacy gifts will be all the more important in bolstering and ensuring the hospital's ability to provide its compassionate care for future generations of patients and their families. It is now my pleasure to turn the program over to Bonnie Brennan and Tash Perrin from Christie's. As was mentioned earlier, Bonnie is a member of both the Calvary Fund Board and the Calvary Professional Advisors Council. In her role as president, Bonnie oversees all of Christie's business development initiatives in the Americas. With 24 years of experience in the industry, she brings a long history of relationship development and client service for the trusts and estates community, and is committed to ensuring that this important audience receives the highest level of service from Christie's. Tash Perrin, Deputy Chairman of Christie's Americas, has been a part of the team at Christie's for 26 years. Tash cultivates new business opportunities across departments and manages many of Christie's most important relationships in the trust and estates advisor community as a key partner during the consignment process. Tash also heads Christie's auctioneering program in the U.S. and partners in Christie's global auctioneering training and development. Tash conducts high-profile auctions herself, most recently selling a T-Rex for over $31 million. Bonnie and Tash, thanks so much for partnering with Calvary on this very special evening for our top donors and friends.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining, and thank you to everyone at Calvary, Frank and Mike and Beth, John, everyone. It's such a treat to be with you every year. I'm sorry that this year we have to do it virtually, but we are delighted to do it nonetheless because we have a number of really interesting tales to share with you. The last year and a half has been quite a journey for everyone on this call or this Zoom. But Tash and I have gotten together and picked out some of the most interesting experiences that we've had since the shutdown last March, which I think you might enjoy. Before we get started with our presentation, I just wanted to cover a couple housekeeping points. The first is that we'll have a Q&A, time for Q&A at the end of the presentation, but we welcome any questions that you might have as we're going through the presentation. Please feel free to submit them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And before I hand it over to Tash, I just want to lay out, we'll talk a little bit about our switch from live auction to virtual, how we did that, and how we really created an atmosphere of almost auction entertainment, transforming our sale room into a virtual TV studio. And then we'll talk about some themes that we saw in this past year. The first, really extraordinary objects were still coming to market. We'll give you a few examples there. And then also the great news that philanthropy, a commitment to philanthropy and giving, using works of art and collections to further philanthropic goals was still something we saw a great deal, which of course makes us so happy and generates great results when things are being sold to benefit charities. When they're sold to benefit charities, we see even more fervent bidding. And then the final trend, which all of us have experienced over the last year, is a real focus and commitment to equity, diversion, and inclusion. And Christie has worked very hard over the last year and a half to really to have actions against those larger corporate goals. So we'll share some of those examples with you. And before I hand it over to Tash, I just want to show you a brief video.
Thank you, Bonnie, and a warm welcome from me as well. I am sorry that we're not getting to see each other this time round in person. I always look forward to our gatherings every year, and it's a wonderful opportunity to see old friends and be able to get together. So thank you for the opportunity to at least get together like this on virtually. It's really wonderful. So that video that we just showed, I remember, Bonnie, I remember when that video came out, when we posted it on our Christie's Instagram page and also online. And I got choked up by that. I remember, how wonderful it was to gather together in a sale room. And I think that came out, sort of in about 3 months into the pandemic, when all of us had been working remotely and, having to navigate how to work Teams and how to work Zoom. And I think what's important to note, and why we have this next slide up here, is that the history of Christie's and the history of, of where we came from back to 1766 was really about putting the right works of art in front of the right people and having a gathering moment. And this is an image from the early 1800s. Christie's was founded in 1766, and we moved a couple times, but this is actually from the early 1800s, and an image that shows our founder and auctioneer James Christie in a rostrum selling a work of art in what is still today the room that we sell major works of art in London. Astonishingly, that's the Great Room. And the only thing that's changed is we don't have a fireplace anymore. I think that would probably not be conducive in today's work safety routine, but we still have an opportunity to get together and have, and be in a room like this. And the next slide shows a room that is a little bit more modern. That was our room at Rockefeller Center. Upstairs. You've probably been in the room when it has been converted into a viewing room rather than an auction room. But we really could accommodate up to 700 or 800 people in that room. And here is just to show you the density of how we used to all gather in this room for major sales. Those are all our colleagues on the telephones speaking to clients and gathering bids from clients that were not in the room. And the auctioneer would have been over to your left conducting the sale. And this was really, the most modern example of how we would all gather in a sale room for, exceptional sales and also for regular sales. The next slide shows you how we had to pivot and how we had to change our sale room to look incredibly differently. And this is the same sale room, if you can believe it. It is a room that now, was more of a, I'd say you'll know that when you come to see us, we're actually in the same blocks as the Today Show. And I constantly think of how we had to pivot and we had to, convert our sale room to look more like the Today Show or a morning talk show, where we had to, look at screens and constantly be thinking about camera angles and really turn it into a digital studio. This is an image of the sale room. I'm in the rostrum standing there on the left, and Bonnie and our wonderful colleague Richard Lloyd are, straight in front of me, and they were giving commentary on this sale, which was so nice to have their smiling faces in front of me. Otherwise, it would have been, we had a live link to online bidders. There were over 250,000 people that were watching this sale, and it really articulated. I think this photograph really shows how we had to just completely change to an online presence. And here you see a couple of colleagues in the room on the telephone banks, 6 feet apart, and speaking to clients. And then the TV screens you see are links to other sale rooms, to our Christie sale rooms. On the left, you see on the left upper picture there, in the bottom picture, you see some people sitting in a telephone bank, and that's our colleagues in London. And then you see this T-Rex dinosaur that was mentioned earlier, we're going to talk about in a second. And on to the right of that are our colleagues in Hong Kong. So even though we were limited with the number of people we could accommodate in our sale room, we had to branch out to have those colleagues that had clients that wanted to participate in those sales participate from other locations. So we had London, Paris, Hong Kong, New York, all participating in one sale, via the telephone and via, essentially a Zoom call. It was really, it was quite extraordinary. And just to give you a little sense, I promise we're not going to be too video heavy, but I think this was really a neat way to describe how we wanted to tell the world that we were changing and getting ready to accommodate this new wide world.
It's the energy.
You have no idea what's actually going to happen.
It's something that is unique that people can't get their hands on. That's what excites me. That's what the moments create. There is a backstage part that people don't see.
There's really nothing like the drama and emotional pitch of an auction.
Because we could no longer have an audience in our rooms, the format is radically changing.
We're breaking the concept of the auction.
We have ways that people can really feel immersed in the experience, and they can really feel like they're part of the show.
Being able to look at what we do in a new way, to innovate, and being able to take auction further into the future.
The 6 months of hard work, of research, of photography.
The sale will be seen across the world live from New York.
Everybody can see it in the same way from the best seat in the house. Has changed everything.
This excitement, which is usually experienced in the room, is going to be transformed and enhanced in a much greater way and brought into the viewers' homes.
Greatest works of art.
Energy. It's a masterpiece.
Visionary.
Drama.
Future.
Live from New York, connected to the world.
It's a great video. It was a sort of a new frontier for us. And what we found in these virtual sales and during the time of the pandemic is thankfully due in large part to the sales that Tash mentioned both in July and October. We had tremendously strong results, which gave people the confidence to sell, even though everything was virtual and the exhibitions were limited. And we, as I mentioned earlier, we still saw some extraordinary objects come to market that generated tremendous enthusiasm. I want us to talk about two of them today. I'll talk about one and then I'll leave Tash to talk about the second one. The first is this wonderful Shakespeare First Folio. The First Folio is a composite of all of Shakespeare's collected plays, and it really ranks among the greatest works of English literature and, in fact, world literature. It was brought to us by Mills College in Oakland, California. It had been in private hands for a very long time and was only one of 5 copies. It was published in 1623, which was 7 years after Shakespeare's death, and it contains, as I said, 36 plays and 17 that were printed in his lifetime, 1 that was printed after his death, and 18 that might have otherwise been lost. Those would include things like Macbeth, Twelfth Night, Measure for Measure, and Julius Caesar. So a really tremendous opportunity, so unique, so rare. I think it again was a great signal of confidence in the market. Normally, books and manuscripts would be something that people would need to see in person and stand over. And while we did have exhibitions, we were a little bit trepidatious about the virtual sale format, but absolutely we saw tremendous results. We had 6 minutes of bidding, which is a long time. Tash can tell you as an auctioneer. And it was sold for almost $10 million, just shy, 9.978, which far exceeded our expectations of 4 to 6 million. This set a world auction record for any work of literature sold at Christie's. So I think it's a real success story, a really wonderful story too of just great appetite in the market for these unique objects, despite all the challenges that COVID provided to us. And with that, Tash gets the headline.
No, I mean, what I thought was so wonderful about this also is, I mean, our books department are so passionate about, I mean, as many of our colleagues are, but they really are truly, they were so passionate about this particular work of art. And our colleague, Gemma Sudlow, who was the auctioneer for this, took a pause before we got to this lot and started the lot and said, to bid or not to bid. And it was just, she just let that stay for a second before then she started to launch into the bidding. And it was phonetic to begin with. It was really quite extraordinary. And so the next image is of this phenomenal T-Rex dinosaur that we've been talking about that we sold in October. And I'm talking over the video here just to show you what it was like to set up this remarkable creature in our sale room. So for those of you that know where we are or have been to Christie's before, this is, you're looking as if you're standing on 49th Street and you're looking into the Christie's space, usually where we have all our window banners that advertise various different sales. And we actually opened up this a room, opened up a window into the room so that you could see Stan's head sort of almost poking out of the wall. And he is 42 feet long and 9.5 feet tall. He was the most he was the finest specimen of a T-Rex that had ever been unearthed before. He was actually unearthed in 1987. His name is Stan because he was named after the paleontologist Stan Sacrison who discovered him. And he's 65 million years old. And really regarded as one of the finest T-Rexes in existence. And you might ask yourself, how did we estimate something like this? If this is something, I mean, you know, it's not necessarily every day that you get an object like this that you have the opportunity to present at auction. And there had been one other T-Rex that had been offered in 1996 or 97. And her name was Sue, named after Sue, who had found her. But this is Stan, who was 199 bones. So he was a little bit larger and a little bit more complete than Sue was. Sue had sold for $8 million and change. So when we decided that we were going to sell Stan, we decided that an appropriate estimate would be $6 to $8 million. And for all sorts of reasons, that if I invite you to Google Stan and learn a little bit more about the history and how he came to us, and it's an interesting story. But needless to say, it was directed by the courts that he be sold, and he had to be sold, and there had to be a definitive sale transaction that took place, which meant that he was going to be offered without reserve. So that means that the highest bid in the room was going to get him no matter what. He had to be sold. So what that also meant was that by law, if an estimate is declared, you need to, if there are no absentee bids or competing absentee bids, people haven't already started to bid and leave absentee bids in advance of the sale, you start at 50% of the low auction estimate. And if nobody bids, you start at 50% from there. And you finally go all the way down until you get a bid. So Stan's estimate was $6 to $8 million. And I therefore then started the bidding at $3 million. And compared to the wonderful Shakespeare folio, where it was, you know, a fevered bidding pace right from the very beginning. I remember looking out at that wonderful image of Bonnie right in front of me. I was so happy to see my, you know, one of my work BFFs right in front of me. And I started at $3 million and it was crickets. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be a little tougher than I thought. And anyway, we then had 15 people from around the world bidding via our colleagues on the telephones. And there were a couple of online bids that came in as well. And we finally sold Stan for an astonishing $31.8 million. So several multiples of that. And it really was a world record price for him. And I think what's interesting, and we're going to talk a little bit about this afterwards when Bonnie describes how we have decided to put together our important sales. But you know, this is any fossils or natural history, there is a sale that we have specifically for works of art like that. And it is a natural history sale. And we realized that Stan was different and Stan needed its own moment. And it was really it was really a phenomenal and the best of the best image, best of the best example. And it really deserved being put into a different context. And we put it into our 20th century art evening sale, which might seem a little strange because he's 65 million years old, but we put him in this context. And we did so because that really is the context where we engage with the world's most prominent masterpiece hunters who frequently bid on trophy, if you will, works of art. And so we decided that that was really the right context for that. So it was an astonishing 20 minutes of bidding. I'll never forget, and really exciting.
Yeah, I have to give Tash real props because it was took a lot of patience. Some of our colleagues on the phone were talking to their bidders on the other line and trying to get Tash to wait and wait so that they could convince their phone bidders to put up their paddle one more time. So really hats off to Tash she's a terrific auctioneer, as Mike said in the beginning, and trains all of our auctioneers and really did a beautiful job selling this remarkable object. One of the most memorable moments I had with the dinosaur was, if you go back a slide, Sarah, Christine, there were some areas of impact.
Yes. I'm glad you're telling about this. Yeah.
And it was really amazing to see it. And it apparently, after many sort of batteries of tests and investigation by the scientists, they shared that the damage to the skull indicated that dinosaur had been in battle several times. It was really a Jurassic moment.
It was so interesting, wasn't it? Because you could see that there were damages to the bones, and we thought maybe that happened when when he was dug up, or maybe that was it. But they said no, they were definitely old enough to show that these battles had been during the dinosaur's lifetime. Amazing. And the other thing that I didn't mention that's interesting to say is that his head was so we wanted to be able to show that those damages that Bonnie's talking about to people who are very interested, but also his head was so heavy. We had to reinforce the floors for where the dinosaur was. And we actually had his head shown in a separate viewing room and had a replica of his head put in the place of him, because we wanted you to be able to see it. And if it was 9.5 feet tall, you wouldn't be able to see it so carefully. So we did actually have that. And we had reframed him on an interesting and much more engaging stand. So he really looked like he was definitely about to go into battle.
That's great. It was wonderful. And then, as I mentioned earlier, what was really heartwarming during the pandemic was also seeing so many artists and collectors still continue in selling works to benefit philanthropy. Mark Seliger is a wonderful celebrity American photographer, and his studio, together with a company called Red Carpet Advocacy, collaborated Red Carpet Advocacy collaborated for this campaign called Rad Art for Aid. And what we did was brought together a sale of iconic portraits of celebrities, many of which have been featured on the cover of magazines we all read, like Rolling Stone and Vanity Fair. And the artist contributed limited edition prints from his own archive to raise money for charities. This is a large composite of some of the works that we sold. 19 charities benefited from the sale. If we flip to the next slide, you can see some well-known people, even from behind. We all know the picture on the left is of President Obama, and these are great examples of which work sold and the organizations that the sales benefited from, the great funds and the auction results we achieved. We expected to make about 100,000, and we made more than 230,000 in this sale. So it was really, I think, a terrific moment, and also very accessible subject matter that many people identified with and felt connected to, and a sale that a wide audience wanted to support. And then slightly more recently, and for those tennis fans out there, I know we've just all wrapped up watching Wimbledon this past week. We had the sale of the Roger Federer collection, which was sold to benefit his foundation. And we raised over 1.3 million pounds, which was 4 times what we expected. I think these pictures here, I'll just tell you, the first is Federer's championship outfit and his racket from the French Open in 2009. We thought that would bring, those are on the left, would bring 50 to 70,000 pounds, made 150,000 pounds. Mm-hmm. And many of you may know, if you're tennis fans, that he considered this his greatest victory on his French Open win in 2009. And then on the right is Federer at Wimbledon from 2007. This too made 150,000. And in 2007, it was Nadal and Federer who would clash. It was their second of 3 consecutive finals at the All England Club. And it went to a 5-set epic match that captured the center court crowd for 3 hours and 45 minutes. Many people remember that. He also, at that time, matched Bjorn Borg's record of 5 Wimbledon titles in a row. So this was a really fun sale for many people, for those who love sports, who collect sports memorabilia. And I think the philanthropic angle is what really drew such a wide audience. We were treated to Roger actually joining us by video in our London sale room in June, which was, as you can see, great fun for everybody, both the Christie staff as well as the participants who watched in the room.
Yeah, he was in a bubble in Wimbledon. He wasn't allowed out until he had played his matches, so we had him on Zoom. But it was really wonderful to have him in the sale room and have a conversation with Yossi, our auctioneer, before he began. And it was really special. And this is actually one of the first times, London went through different phases of being able to be open, and we were able to have limited number of clients in the room. And so this is, a far cry from a full sale room, but definitely exciting because we also had, as Bonnie said, some people in the room. It was very exciting. And then something that definitely captured the news headlines and probably the imagination of quite a few people, and also just probably more than ever, the disbelief of what on earth has just happened. What is this? I don't understand. It's worth almost 70 million and I don't even get it. So let me just try to explain a little bit about what this was. We were the first auction house to sell an NFT artwork. And this was an NFT artwork that sold for an extraordinary price. And it was the first time that we had sold something like this, a unique work of art that was purely an NFT. And it was a sale that took place where it was all online, and we're going to get to see the artist's reaction to the sale in a second. But just to explain it a little bit, an NFT are generally one of a kind, or at least a kind of it's a non-fungible token. That's what an NFT actually stands for. And it is essentially a unique set of codes and a unit of data that's stored on a digital level, on a digital ledger that's called the blockchain. And many of you might know a little bit about the blockchain because that is where the blockchain stores digital information. And we have actually sold. We've been involved in sales that have stored data on the blockchain previously, but this is the first NFT work of art that we've actually sold that had no physical presence at all. It was purely based on it being on the blockchain. And it is a digital asset that is unique and therefore is not interchangeable. And anyone can view this individual image, or in this case, images, because this is actually the artist. This work of art is called The First 5,000 Days. And what the artist did was create a unique work of art every day for 5,000 days. And that is why it looks the way it is. You're looking at 5,000 unique works of art that are put together in this one image. And it is, anybody can view the image, the individual images, or even the entire collage of images online for free. So you might say, why on earth would somebody spend this kind of money for that? Why is somebody willing to spend millions if they can just take a screenshot or a download of this? And it's basically that collectors of NFTs, the buyer really finds that owning this unique digital item is what is so extraordinary and so appealing to them. It contains built-in authentication, which serves as proof of ownership. And collectors value this digital bragging rights almost more than the artwork itself. And this, when we sold it, it was interesting because we had never sold anything like that before. And normally, as you know, we have an estimate that has a low and a high, and it gives you some sort of an indication. It's really a marketing tool, but it gives you at least an indication of what we think a work is going to be sold for. And in our world, when we think that something is so extraordinary and it's really hard to put a price on it because it's so extraordinary, it might say estimate on request. And it might mean that we're taking in some information from people that are interested, and we're going to come back and say, we think it's going to be in the region of, and we'll give a figure. But here, we cheekily sort of put down that it was estimate unknown because we really had no idea. And as you can see here, it was the bidding went over a 2-week period, and it started at $100, and it really went up extraordinarily to 69.3 million. And we had what I think is so important for us to just remember about this is that this was the first time that we actually sold a different kind of artwork to a different kind of audience, and something that we had never done before. And that's really what was so extraordinary. And as I said, we're just going to show a short little clip of Beeple the artist watching the sale live in the last few minutes of bidding.
So we are in my living room and we're watching the closing of the auction, which closes in 1 hour and 18 minutes. It's already at like a absolutely ridiculous amount. That I made is very much influenced by the tools and influenced by the work of a bunch of people in the crypto community as well.
Hey Mike, this is Jason. I just want to say congratulations. You're at 25,250,000. This is crazy, man.
Jesus Christ, what the f?
Oh
my God! 50 million!
What?
Oh my God! 69 million. I think it probably means digital art is here to stay. I'm going to Disney World.
I think there were quite a few of us that were as shocked about that, but he is right. I mean, there really is a sense that digital artwork might be here to stay, and there were a couple of other examples of digital assets or digital works of art that we have sold since that time. And I'm conscious of time a little bit, Bonnie, because I know there's a couple of things we want to get through, and I'm sure there's going to be some questions about that. But just to say, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in this space and to see how this market will fluctuate. As I said, it's a brand new market. What's so interesting to us is that some of these new clients that I said had participated in that sale actually went on to participate in live sales and of actual works of art. So they actually bid and bought in other categories since then. So that was really an astonishing realization for us and a really interesting moment in our history.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. We just reported our first half year sales today to the press, and just in the first half of 2021, we've sold $93.2 million in NFTs, which is far larger than some of the more established categories that we've had for decades and decades at Christie's, hundreds of years, in fact. So as Tash said, it'll be interesting to see where this takes us, but certainly it is a meaningful part of our business at the moment, and we're very invested in maintaining our voice. We're also interested in sharing all of our learning. You know, we're all learning in real time about NFTs. And this Thursday, we're hosting our 4th Art and Tech Conference here at Christie's, which will be focused on NFTs. We're going to bring innovators and thought leaders together to talk about that. So I'm just going to quickly go over a couple things so we can get to Q&A and to your questions. Some other interesting developments of the pandemic were a new sale category was born. We traditionally, as you all know, used to sell Impressionist and modern art in one sale and post-war and contemporary art in another. And this year we decided to combine those two and create 2 new sale formats, 20th century art and 21st century art. And the best news about the 21st century art platform is it really allowed us to create a platform that we could share with underrepresented artists, some new, younger, emerging artists, and the response was tremendous. If you flip to the next slide, you can see we had a number of new records set for some of these emerging artists. If any of you had the chance to go to the Frieze Art Fair here in New York in May, the work on the right, top right, was by Rashid Johnson. Major prize for a blue work at the fair, and we included a Rashid Johnson in our 21st century sale and achieved this remarkable price and new record. There were 35 artists in the sale, and we set 11 new artist records. So it was a really wonderful night, and I think really important to what we've been saying and what the world at large has been saying is that we have to be much more, we have to use our platform for good to make sure that we're celebrating artists of color, diverse artists, female artists. And I think we're doing that in our regular sales calendar. We're also doing it through some of our more charitable initiatives. We are happy next month to be hosting our second Say It Loud sale, which is a partnership that Christie's has with Destiny Ross Sutton. She is a partner whose vision and mission is to bring awareness and visibility to these artists. And we are delighted that we can offer the Christie's Global Stage and platform to help support her in that. We did it last August, and we will have it here at Christie's Rock Center. I believe it opens on August 6th. If any of you are in the neighborhood, please come by. We are back open for business, and you can come for viewing, and you can come without any appointments now that the restrictions are been eased a bit. So that's that. I'd love to move to Q&A just so that we have time.
We have a couple of questions, Bonnie, and I think one of them, and I think this is appropriate for you to think about and perhaps answer. The question is, are we seeing more educational and cultural organizations asking for our help to put resources for sale to help raise funds to benefit their missions?
Absolutely. It's been last year, I think we had our largest sales total on behalf of nonprofits and museums who were, as many of you know, museums and institutions can always sell to build their collections, but last year there were some restrictions that were eased so that they could actually use those funds for care of collections. Mm-hmm. So obviously the nonprofit and museum community went through a tremendously difficult time through COVID. So many museums shuttered, staff furloughed. We were all eager to go to museums, but we couldn't support the museums the way we normally do as visitors. And so I think that obviously all of it contributed to consideration of selling some of their works to help get them through those difficult times. And thankfully, when those institutions did sell, whether it was with us or with some of our other competitors in the auction and art space, I think we saw a tremendous response because people, not only were those objects important and valued by these institutions, but again, similar to the story earlier with the Rad and the Federer sale, there was great interest in doing good, in using the opportunity, the collecting opportunity, to help charitable organizations.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the next question is, are you finding the engagement of a virtual bidding audience being larger and worldwide and whether or not that's raising final bids to new record levels? And I'd say definitely. I mean, what's extraordinary about that is that we have, I think people's familiarity with this, with what we're doing right now, has made people that much more comfortable, if you will, with bidding online and with buying things online. I know that my mom and dad probably never knew how to buy something on Amazon before, but they definitely know how to do it now. And I think that just was one other way where people's, the technological sort of, issues were definitely softened, and people were much more comfortable to participate this way. And whether they were, whether they were watching, whether they were interested, we'd never had, as I said, we had 750, 800 people in the room before, and a couple of thousand would watch the sale on Christie's Live. But we, through all sorts of other different digital media platforms, we were able to reach an audience of over 350,000 people watching our sales. So it was really amazing.
And I think Absolutely. And to that point, I think the other nice piece about, and the silver lining of COVID, was that the digital engagement really opened up and demystified the auction process. So many more people came into the space. Then you layered on NFT. Yeah. That was a whole new community of buyers. And the best story for Tash and for us, all of our colleagues, is when we can transition somebody from that entry point into other categories. And we saw one of the bidders on the Beeple work actually went on to buy a Picasso and a Warhol in a subsequent Christie sale. So that to me is really a great success story.
Yeah. Bonnie, it's so nice. We're getting questions from friends. It's so nice to see their names come across. Yeah. So one of the questions was, how do we manage to get works of art into our hands during the pandemic? That was definitely a challenge to begin with.
It sure was. And Glenn, hi Glenn, it's nice to see you, or see your name in the chat box. It was a real challenge. We were closed by the city. We were unable to access our galleries or use our own loading docks. So we had to get creative about shipping. We actually took space at the Freeport in Delaware, where we were able to ship works of art for storage until we could access our building again. And it also provided us space to take works where we could inspect and catalog those works. So we really did have to get creative, and I have to give all of our colleagues great kudos for coming up with solutions during those times.
Yeah.
Tash, I think you should answer the next one, which I know you, I'll let you say what you can say. From Meg. Hi, Meg.
I know, Meg, hello. Who bought Stan? And what are they going to do with them? It's a very good question. So our when you participated in an auction at Christie's, your buyer information is held confidential with us, and you are not once the gavel falls and the work is yours, it's up to you to determine whether or not you'd like to share that information. And the buyer has not chosen to come forth yet, but I understand that the buyer will at some point, and we should be able to hear a little bit more about where Stan is going. But I know that Stan has left the building. He's gone. So we know that he's in safe hands.
Yeah. And then I think we have one more question from Lorraine, which was about the Beeple work. The digital pieces that he used, are they copyrighted prior to him using them? We've already answered the Stan question. Tash, do you want to take that, or I'm happy?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting is that because it's an NFT, and because, it is, what's interesting to the person that's buying it is they have the digital rights to this. So they are owned by the person who is the purchaser of the work of art. And that's what's interesting to them. It's, somebody asked me the other day about this, and I said, well, it's a little bit like, if you're interested in putting, the Mona Lisa on your wall, and you are, you're happy to have an image of it. And as we've said, you can share and you can enjoy this, but you don't actually, you're not the owner of the digital NFT.
And also, I think it's worth noting, if we didn't clarify, that all of those digital pieces that people put into the composite, those were all his own original works. He did a work every day for the first 5,000 days of his career. So he didn't appropriate anyone else's works.
Yeah. Bonnie, this was so much fun. I'm so glad we got to do this together and at least have a conversation and get to do it with this wonderful group of friends that we're all happy to be reunited with.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. We'll give you one more minute if anybody has any other questions. Doesn't look like we do. So thank you again to Calvary, your wonderful friends and partners, and we can't wait to be together in person again.
Yeah, we look forward to that opportunity to welcome you back in our sale rooms. Thank you so much for the opportunity to see you, and we definitely look forward to getting together in person soon.